nobody on this road that can save your soul. Almost lost control now. Tell me what you need in a friend and now. Pray that we endure to the end again. I'm just saying that I'm here for you. When the world turn against you, I'ma be with you. Got my sword in my hand, you can count on me. I won't run and hide, fight mightily.
Waiting on you, how it shot. See the Jacob, I'm the apple of my father's eye. I learned the truth for who I was and it made me cry. If I don't keep the laws of Yah, then I'm gonna die. Living curses, but I'm edifying in my verses. Prepare the hearses for the heathens who be steady learning.
Con. Allah, how about Shimmy Shah? My camera a little cloudy. There it is. All praise to the Most High God. Yahweh, Bahashem, Hamashiach, Wamalak, Yahushai. We in this mighty Feast of Tabernacles. All praise to the Most High. Happy Feast of Tabernacles. Shar, Sukkot, right? Sukkot. For all of my crews that's keeping the Feast of Tabernacles as pursuant to Leviticus 23, right? It's a beautiful thing to be in this feast day in this season, remembering our ancient heritage, our brothers and our sisters, and we want to get right into it tonight. Manna Mondays, we're going to go over some biblical artifacts. You know, there's always a lot of discussion in terms of if certain things are real or if the Bible is real, right? If the Bible is real. And one way that we can see this is through what's called archaeology. So I'm going to get this real quick. Archaeology, I'm probably spelling it wrong. Bam. Archaeology. Archaeology. So one thing in terms of being a historian is you have to get into archaeology, artifacts, and things, and so forth and so on. So a lot of times we don't look at, or even in terms of modern history, we don't look at the Bible as a historical document, right? As a historical compilation of various artifacts, right? Landmarks and these type of things. So tonight we're going to go into all biblical archaeology and proof of the Bible, because people will want to tell you that the Bible is a hoax, that the Bible is a bunch of fairy tales, right? And we know that not to be true. We know the Bible is undoubtedly 1,000% real, 1,000% real. So bear with me one second. Right? Bear with me one second. Okay. Bam. So the first archaeological artifact we're going to get into tonight is, let's go into what archaeology is itself. Archaeology is the scientific study of past human life. We know the Israelites are real humans. And cultures, you know, the Israelites have a culture. Through the analysis of their material remains could go into, graves, burials, artifacts, such as artifact features, and ecofacts. I'm not really sure what an ecofact is. We're going for this, right? Ecofacts. In archaeology, a biofact is any ecofact or biofact, I guess they're a synonym. In archaeology, a biofact is any organic material, including flora or fauna material, found at an archaeological site that has not been technically altered by humans, yet still has cultural relevance. Biofacts can include, but are not limited to, plants, seeds, pollens, animal bones, insects, fish bones, and mollusks. So we see, even in terms of how we went about preserving certain type of biofacts, like, you know, there are certain plants and things that are native to certain regions, and there's certain plants and animals that we may have used in a fashion in terms of, you know, cultivating agriculture. You might have utilized certain fish bones that may have been for, a toothpick, or you might have had certain plants even that were preserved inside of the remains of various bones or various what are they called? Various graves, sepulchres, as we say. Features in Equifax. The purpose of archaeology is to understand how and why human behavior has changed over time, providing unique perspectives on people and places that history books cannot. So the thing about it is, when you go into the scriptures, the scriptures are undoubtedly, in fact, like without any reasoning, right? Any doubt of reason. The scriptures are history. They're a historical compilation of wars, lineages, events, right? Whether those events have been ecological events, certain catastrophic events as far as floods, plagues, famines. So there's a whole totality of events that are contained in the scripture, right? So when we get into archaeology of the scriptures, a lot of people don't realize, hey, the Bible ain't nothing to play with. It's not a Harry Potter's book. It's not Lord of the Rings. It's not a good novel that was written by Sister Sojourner or whatever her name is. It's not Knights, what is it, King Arthur and the 12 Knights of Justice. It's none of that. It's the actual codified, recorded, historical records of a people, a nation of people called the Israelites that are still around today, right? And this first artifact we're going to start with is from my neck of the woods, right? My so-called neck of the woods, Ohio, right? And I even read in a book, and I've been looking for this book as well, right? That said that Ohio was a pronunciation of Yahweh, right? Ohio, Yahweh. I think it was either, they came before us, or the 12 tribes. It was in one of these books. I gotta find the book. Nevertheless, in Ohio, you have a lot of, I'm gonna show you this, Ohio mound builders. Because Gad and Reuben were known for building mounds, right? And a lot of these artifacts, like when we go into the Decalogue, or they also call it the Decalogue stone. Sometimes they call it the Newark, Ohio stone or whatnot. But Ohio mound builders were ancient, Native American cultures. Now, when you think about cultures, different cultures have different archaeological or different architectural styles. Like, for instance, watch this. If we go, I'm gonna open up a new tab, right? And if we go to cultures, architectural styles. So you have different cultures that have different styles of architecture. So you have Victorian style, for an example, right? You see a lot of these in a lot of your older neighborhoods and things. You got Gothic architecture, contemporary architecture, which is more modern. But if you go look, Islamic architecture, as you see, there's different styles of architecture based on what culture that you're a part of, because different parts of the world have different geographical weather patterns. Right? There's different climates. That's the word I'm looking for. There's different climates. Look, Indo-Saracenic architecture. So you see the different climates have different building materials. If you're in more of a tropical climate, then you're going to probably have more tropical building materials as far as that are native to that land, whatever resources ecologically are available. There's different types of dirts and compositions and so forth and so on. So you see there are different types of architectural styles based on, Renaissance architecture, ancient Greek, ancient Egyptian, eclecticism, Hawaiian architectural, medieval, Guji, Moroccan, Moorish. So the point is there's different styles of architecture based upon where you're located. So when we go back into the Ohio mound builders, which were ancient Native Americans, and we know that the ancient Native Americans who dwelled in this portion of the so-called world, right? You had the Gadites, the tribe of Gad, which go into more of your, I would say more of your the big tribes that are known. You know, you have the I wouldn't say the Arawak, but you have the Apache, right? You have the Cherokee, you have the Muskegon. You have these different nations of Native Americans, right? And a lot of them build using mounds. And it actually even goes back when you look in our ancient culture, we would build sepulchres, which are graves and things in the side of hills and certain things of that nature. So not to get too long-winded, this first artifact, and I'm trying to tie it together so that you can have an understanding in your mind that Gadites, right, had a culture that predated Columbus, pre-Columbian artifacts. And a lot of these artifacts, that we're going to go over tonight, Lord willing, through the Spirit, are pre-Columbian artifacts. What does that mean, Brother Nehemiah? Pre-Columbian means it predates the so-called white man being over here in this nation, in this geographical region known as America, or in the ancient times known as Arsarid, that we read about. And I'm going to get this quick precept real quick, right? Because when we go to 2nd Esdras 13 and 40 is what I want, right? 2nd Esdras 13 and 14. Those are the 10 tribes, Northern Kingdom, which were carried away prisoners out of their own land. Now, this own land goes into the land of Israel in the Northern Kingdom. In the time of Hosea, the king, this is Hosea, the king, right? The Israelite king, whom Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, right? Of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. So when you think about history, when you think about migration patterns, a lot of times we can close the Bible, right, and show you from a historical context, from migration patterns, from language, from archaeology, from ethnology, from culture, dialects, from all of these different things that modern day scholars, air quote, utilize to substantiate their position in certain matters, right? We can do the same thing, y'all. Don't let nobody box you in to telling you that your culture, your heritage, your historical records, your archaeological discoveries and evidence is not validated outside of the Bible. It's madness, right? Repeat game. Moving on. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen. Now, we always had a heathen round about us. Even when you look at how things were set up, right? When you look at a map of ancient Israel, right? And where the 12 tribes were, you had Moab around, you had Edom, you had like Tyrians like Don, right? Which goes into, look, these are the heathen that were around us. Let me pull up this map, right? Ancient map. Peep game, y'all. Assyrian Empire. What were we just reading about? In 2nd Esdras, bam. We were reading about the Assyrians who carried us away into captivity. So you got the Assyrian Empire, the kingdom of Aram, Damascus, right? You got, look, Samaria right here, which is chiefly the capital of the Northern Kingdom, right? You got Jerusalem, which is the capital of the Southern Kingdom, right? You have, look, the kingdom of Moab, heathen. Kingdom of Ammon, heathen. Aramean tribe, heathen. Nabatu tribes, heathen. Kingdom of Edom, heathen. Arabu tribes, which this goes into the so-called Arabians. Philistine states, right? Even in the book of Judges, when you read about our mighty brother, that's believing in the book of Judges. We read about our mighty brother Samson dealing with the Philistines, right? They were these kingdoms around. Look, you got Ashkelon, Ashdod, right? Very idolatrous nations. The kingdom of Israel up here. Look, Phoenician. You have Sidon and Tyre. These are more Phoenician Canaanite nations, right? The damn Hamites. So the point is, when you go here and you see it says, but they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen. You see the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. So that further country is Arsarid, the Americas, my brothers and sisters, that they may keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. Now, is this saying that they never kept the law, statutes, and commandments ever when they were in Israel? No, that's not true. We have points of time where we were keeping them. The context of this is basically in totality where they never kept them straight without breaking them. There was time periods that we'd fall, Most High would punish us, raise up a savior, right? And things of that nature. And I'm not talking about a Messiah in the sense of Yahweh Shai, but we had multiple saviors that was raised up. And Moses was a savior. Joshua was a savior. Hey, Deborah was a mighty judge, a savior, right? So, and then we would go and back into captivity. So that's the context of this. Boom, moving on. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. Now, when you look up historically, I want to show y'all something. When you look up historically, the Tabor River, I think that's what it's called, the Tabor River, serious thing what I want, right? Bam. Habor, same thing, right? The river Tabor, in context of Assyria, is most likely the Habor River, a large important river in Mesopotamia. The Assyrians exiled Israelites to its valley, as mentioned in the Bible, 2 Kings and 1 Chronicles. The Tabor in the search query, I meant Habor, my bad, Slaki, Habor River. That's what I meant. It wasn't the Tabor. I misspoke, y'all. The Habor River is what I'm looking up, right? So bam, let me get this real quick. So the Habor River, when you go into this Habor River, this is where the Assyrians have put us. You can read that in 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, right? You can see right here, 17 and 6. I'm gonna get this real quick. I'm gonna get it in the KJV, right? Bam. Where the KJV at? I get it in the ESV. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria captured Samaria, and he carried the Israelites away to Assyria and placed them in Halah and on the Habor, the river of Gozan, in the cities of the Nile. So we see, look, Hosea. Now look, when we cross-reference that back to 2nd Esdras 13 and 40, what do we see? Bam. Bam. Hosea, carried away by Shalmaneser. We know that's the king of Assyria. Let's cross-reference this really quick, because people will lead you to believe that the Bible is all fake people. Bam. Shalmaneser. Look, Shalmaneser the fifth. Shalmaneser the fifth, a Neo-Assyrian. Neo just means new. The new Assyrian kingdom, because you had the Assyrians, you had the Babylonians, you had the Medo-Persians, right? And you had various Assyrian empires, all right? So look, Shalmaneser the fifth, king of Assyria, king of Babylon, king of Sumer, and Akkad goes into the Akkadians, king of the four corners of the world, because at one time the Assyrian empire was mighty. They ruled and subjugated the Israelites. But peep this. Is biblical Hebrew, who was the king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire from 727 BC to his disposition and death in 722 BC. Though Shalmaneser V's brief reign is poorly known from contemporary sources, he remains known for the conquest of Samaria and the fall of the kingdom of Israel. Though the conclusion of that campaign is sometimes attributed to his successor Sargon II. But the point is, no one disputes that the ancient Assyrians were a people. No one disputes that ancient Assyria was a kingdom. No one disputes that the relics and the artifacts of ancient Assyria. So when you look at tying this back to Kingdom of Israel, 722 BC, Shalmaneser V, who was disposed and was put to death, I believe, by the Persian or Medes, if I'm not mistaken. But nevertheless, or it might be by Babylon, but I'll go into that. But nevertheless, when you go back to get deep into it, you'll realize this one thing that ties it. Bam! The Ohio mound builders. Now you might be saying, okay, Brother Nehemiah, what the heck does this have to do with biblical artifacts in Assyria? Because what we're doing is we're chronologically making a timeline so that you can put in your Hebrew Israelite mind to debunk people who say that we don't have a history, that the Bible is just a made-up story. So by being able to tie the historical events that happen in other civilizations, right? Because no one's going to tell you that the Assyrians didn't exist, but they'll tell you that the ancient Israelites didn't exist, that the Bible was just a made-up nation, right? But the fake small hats, the real small hats, the fake news tell you today that they're the chosen people. See, but they only rock with the Talmud. They don't rock with the scriptures because the scriptures debunks that. So when you go back into it, you'll see, leaving from Shalmaneser V, put by they captured us, they conquered us, put us in Hillel by the Habor River. We left the Habor River, right, as we see in Second Esdras, part of these 10 tribes that are carried away. We went across to a country further that never mankind dwelt, right? We entered into the Euphrates and the narrow places of the river, and that's why I was showing y'all in terms of the Habor, right? When you go back into that Habor River, while I was showing you this, Habor to the Euphrates, bam, watch this. Bam, look at this. So you got the Habor River. Look at this right here, y'all. Can't make this up. Habor. See this? Look. Aram Naharam. I think that's how you say that, right? Aram. This is going into the Assyrians. What do you call it? The Medes, right? So look, you got the Habor River. Bam. We took this Habor River. We entered into the narrow passages of the Euphrates. Now let's get on the wider context. Look, you got Babylon with Ashur, right? Nineveh. We know all of these were mighty cities in the ancient world. Habor River, bam, narrow passages. This is the Euphrates River. And when you look at, boom, taking the Euphrates River all the way up to, if I can get up here, you can see kind of right here, all the way up into this land body of water. Let me get a better map. I want a more zoomed out view, right? My bad. I wasn't even sharing the right tab. Right here. Look, y'all. So you see right here, bam, the Habor River into the Euphrates, all the way up the narrow passages, all the way up into this body of water up here, right? So, bam, you go back and you'll notice that, and we'll zoom out a little bit, y'all. We're gonna zoom out a little bit. We're gonna zoom out a little bit so y'all can see. All right. I want a better image. Let me get a good image. Matter of fact, Habor, the Euphrates River into the ocean. This is probably gonna give me what I want. Bam, I think this is what I want right here. Let me see if I can get a good map. All right, bam. Tigris, the Habor, Euphrates, and the narrow passage. All of these riverways connect. Look, that's why when they meant the narrow passages. The Euphrates was the main river, but you have other bodies of water that flow through these particular, tributaries and so forth and so on. So back to the point, back to the fact of the matter. Damn, when you get back to these archaeological evidences, we left the Euphrates, the Tigris. We came around. You have the I believe they call it the Straits of Gibraltar or whatever. They used to think that there was a land bridge up there, right? And this is how we got over onto this part of the world, where now, as you see, by the narrow places of the river, the Most High then shoots signs for them. What does that mean? The Most High, when you get into cosmology, when you get into cartography, as far as charting our maps, when you get into maritime, that's the word I'm looking for, maritime cartography, right? I'm going to show y'all this real quick. And this stuff gets deep because this is how of an intelligent people we have been. Maritime cartography. My spelling be trash sometimes, y'all, so bear with me. Bam, look. Maritime cartography or nautical cartography is the specialized field of creating and maintaining nautical charts and maps for maritime navigation. It involves the scientific and artistic compilation of data regarding water depths, shorelines, navigational aids. Those might be what are they called? Landmarks, right? Hazards and other relevant features to guide vessels safely and efficiently through waterways. Maritime cartographers use various data sources. Look, back in the day, we didn't have a plethora, a litany. With them big words, I'm like, T.I. No, we didn't have a whole bunch of different data sources. You couldn't get on a computer and type into a database in the ancient days and look up certain waterways to travel through to get to your destination. So back when it says right here that the Most High then showed signs for them, this goes into a lot of, this is a perfect time to get this precept that just came to mind, right? As tonight, side note, if you haven't looked out and saw the harvest moon, the mighty harvest moon tonight, right there in our mighty Feast of Tabernacles. And that harvest moon goes into, I'm going to get this real quick. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I want to get this real quick. Harvest moon. Bam, look at this. Bam. And you can go outside and see this right now. They also call it a super moon going on right now. Look, keep your eyes along the horizon on Monday night and see the first super moon of the year. Now, this is technically when the moon is a full moon and it's closest to the so-called orbit of the earth. Well, it's a super moon and it's super bright tonight. And they also called it the harvest moon because in ancient times, as you know, this is the season of ingathering, right? As we see in, I believe that's Exodus 34th chapter, where you can go in and see, I hate all these dang on pop-ups. You can see the what is it called? The ingathering, right? This is the season of ingathering. Why? Because during the harvest moon, you can actually harvest more because you could see late at night and it would shine bright. So that's why they kind of, fun fact, call it the harvest moon, right? But I didn't lost my tab, y'all. Hold on 1 second. I lost my tab. Where that tab at, man? Hold on, bear with me, y'all. My tab went somewhere. All right, nevertheless, bam. So that harvest moon, when we go into the Most High, right, then shoot signs for them, that's going into, that's why I was getting this precept really quick, is that the moon, the Most High made for a sign. All right, we see that the Most High made the moon for a sign, and it gives her light. Right, I'm gonna get this real quick. Second Ezra 6:45. Upon the fourth day thou commandest that the sun should shine, and the moon give her light, and the stars should be in order. So you have to understand that as master cartographers and master maritime masters of maritime, we didn't have, you know, a database of the internet that we can look. But when it says that the Most High showed signs, we would actually look at the stars and we would chart our destination based on the moon position, the stars position, you know, certain times, right? You had certain what do you call it, currents and things of that nature that were very deadly and dangerous. So when it says for the Most High then shewed signs for them, and held still the flood, so they were passed over. So what this is saying is that the Most High guided our people through the cosmos, through their understanding of the moon and the stars. And you got to think, this is Northern Kingdom, right? And I'm not getting simple, but we know even when you get into like the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incans, who were mound builders and things of that nature, the Incans, the Aztec, the Mayans, and so forth and so on, they had that secret knowledge of maneuvering and dealing with time and the stars and things of that nature. So they were able to maneuver. And when the Most High said he, be patient with me now, I'm gonna try to walk this joint down. Now, when the Most High said, and he held still the floods till they were passed over, what that's actually going into is the lunar cycles, right? Determine the pull on the oceans. Now, I'm about to prove this, right? I'm about to prove this. Watch this, y'all. Lunar cycles determine ocean wave and crest. Bam. What? Look at this, y'all. Look at this. So you have different phases of the moon. In between the moon and the earth, you have something called gravitational pull. You got gravitational rotational pull. So you have different unseen things. And this goes to, dang, man, I want to get this quick precept. Glock here, y'all. It reminds me of that Romans 1 and 20. That Romans 1 and 20. This is one of my favorite precepts, especially the people who don't believe in the Most High God, which is not right. Romans 20. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. Now, peep how poetic the scriptures is. It's saying the invisible things are clearly seen. Now, how can you see something that's invisible? Well, do you not see the evidence of the wind from the leaves blowing? You're not literally seeing the wind blow, right? But you feel it. You feel that cool wind on the back of your neck when you there, and you riding in the car top down, or you sitting outside and you feel that cool wind, but you don't see the wind, but you see the evidence of it. You see the trees swaying and things like that, right? So these are the things that are the evidence of the creation of the Most High God. So for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead. And we don't trip on Godhead. That's not going into the Trinity. It's going into the Most High. It's the head of the gods, because Christ is a God too, but he's not the Most High God, right? So that they are without excuse. Meaning, if you're on that Psalms 14 and 1 tip where the fool says in his mind that there's no God, if you're that damn fool, you can't even deny that it's the power of the Most High. Now, repeat this. We're going to tie this right back to the spirit, to the moon, the lunar cycle. Because although you can't see gravity, right? And I think they say gravity, if I'm not mistaken. Now this is scientific rhetoric, but I think it's 3.4 meters per second squared. If I'm not tripping, I think that's the velocity of gravity. Yeah, 3.4 meters per second squared is, hold on, let me see. Is that gravity on a free falling object? Is it? Yeah, okay, yeah. So look, a gravitational acceleration of 3.4 meters per second square is significantly less than Earth's gravity, similar to the gravity found on the planet Mars. So what they're saying is that Earth's gravity has a certain force. And we was actually going over this, and you think about a force. A force is something that is exerting a vector quantity, like speed is a force, right? It can be directional. Like if I take two magnets and I put them together. Yes, we don't believe, and we was going over this at camp, we don't believe in the law of attraction, that it governs the world, but we cannot deny that there is a law, whether you want to call it attraction or not. When you have two magnets and you have a negative and a positive, they're going to they're going to attract. So these are the evidences of things that the Most High has created that we're now able to see, and we're able to understand from the invisible things of the Most High, right? So peep game, this 3.4 meters per second square is significant because you have, like, if I take this chocolate and I drop it, right? It's saying that gravitational, the reason why the chocolate doesn't float is because the Most High has created forces, gravity, right? And it's saying that if they measure that gravity from a scientific standpoint, that it's supposed to fall 3.4 meters per second is gravity pulling on a free falling object. Now, okay, brother Nehemiah, why are you telling us this? Bear with me, keep this. Going back to the moon going around in cycles, right, is creating a unseen force that pulls on the earth, right? It pulls and things, and you know that there are certain forces or spirits, right? We can say it's a force if we're talking scientific terms. Now, I hate saying scientific sometimes because it, you know, and the truth is like we don't, science just means knowledge at the end of the day, right? But it's like we're not putting we're not putting what's the word? We're not putting science on the pedestal. We're not saying that science is the predominant controlling force of anything. I'm just utilizing modern day terminology to try to express and convey, Lord willing, what I'm trying to put down here, right? So when it goes back to the earth and you got the moon going around, you got these invisible forces, right, that are even spirits in a sense, because we see the Most High gave certain angels, right, power over fire, power over wind, power over the forces. So you got these forces pulling on the earth, and they're exerting gravitational energy that's pulling against the water. Because remember, the earth is 3/4 water. And we saw that in the book of Genesis when he separated the water from the land. The dry land came from the water. The water didn't come from the dry land, right? And so when you look at this right here, look at this, y'all. So if you go into, bam, and I'm gonna tie this back together, Lord willing, y'all. Right, man, I'm having fun in the word, man. Ain't nothing like teaching a word, learning a word. The Most High give us wisdom, Lord willing, to tie things together and to look at the world in a way where we can just acknowledge Yahweh Bashim Yahushai and all things, because it's like, man, it's so deep. And the scriptures say, be not, I'm paraphrasing y'all, ignorant in a matter great or small. So when you look at the wavelength, right, you have the wavelength, you have the crest of the wave, and you have, I think it's called the break of the wave, right? And you have the wave height. So, and look, and you got the orbital path of water molecules. All of these, and then look, still water level. So the still water level, and this is why they say it's an earthly proverbs where they, my bad, I'm sharing the wrong tab. It's an earthly proverbs where they even say, still waters run deep. Y'all heard of that before? Still waters run deep, right? That's hard. Right? So you got the still water now. Pipe deep. Don't forget, we're tying this back, all right, to 2nd Esdras 13 and 44. For the Most High then shewed signs for them, We went inside. The moon is a sign. The star is a sign. So when we left the Habor River down the Euphrates, down the narrow passages of the river, across a big ocean way that you could, we didn't have big ships. We're in little canoes, little boats, a mighty nation. Going over into the land of Arsareth, the Most High had to held still the floods that they were passed over, right? How did he hold still the floods? It's going into these different lunar cycles, all right? So you got these different lunar cycles that are controlling the waves, so there's not big waves and danger in a little canoe where you perish. And our people had the knowledge of these cycles and seasons and things of that nature. Like as we get back to our ancient heritage, why are we keeping the Feast of Tabernacles right now? Because we count the days from our Hebraic culture, from the feast days, everything has to be kept in the season. So they knew through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua and the knowledge that he bestowed upon us when to take these journeys and when not to take these journeys. So that's the breakdown on that. And the Most High withheld and held still, because you see there's a still water level, right? And back to the moon, those gravitational forces pull on the waves in certain seasons, depending on how close the moon is to orbit and the poles of the earth and the equator and different wave levels and stuff. So he held still the flood and had those still waters so that we could pass over, right? Now I'm about to get back to it, Lord willing. All praise Yahweh Shem Yahushua, until they were passed over. Now, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. In the same region is called Arsareth. Arsareth goes into the so-called America. And you know what? Too, with when you go into Solomon, right? When you get the mighty book of Second Chronicles, when it talks about, I'm gonna get this real quick in 9 and 21. It's lucky, y'all. Second Chronicles 9 and 21, it talks about Tarshish, right? The ships of Tarshish. This was an ancient maritime merchant nation. We know the Olmecs. A lot of people think the Olmecs are Native Americans, that they're Israelites, but they're not, y'all. The Olmecs that came into this part of the world were actually Hamitic nations. You know, a lot of times when you go into the Afro-Brazilians, Afro-Colombians, a lot of those museums down there, you'll see the big Olmec heads with the Negroid features. Those are Hamitic nations, y'all. And back though to the point is, in this Second Chronicles, look what it says, y'all. Very interesting. Second Chronicles 9 and 21. For the king's ships went to Tarshish with the servants of Haran. Every 3 years, once came the ships of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. Okay, Brother Nehemiah, why did you bring this here? What the hell does this have to do, Salakia for the language, right? What does this have to do with, the mound builders? Well, listen, y'all, let's use some mental math. Now, I count on my fingers. My mental math is not always the best, right? Lord willing is getting better. But peep game, y'all. If we know that when Solomon was dealing with the ships of Tarshish and the servants of Haram, and they were going on this 3-year trip, round trip 3 years, to bring peacocks and ivory and silver and, you know, so forth and so on. And I'm gonna show you, look, I'm gonna go to this algamum trees, I think it's called, right? Bam. Let me go to the next verse. And King Solomon passed all the kings of the earth in riches and wisdom. And all the kings of the earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear wisdom that Yahweh put in his heart. Now, peep this, back to the point. When you go into this part of the world, you go into, I think it's algamum trees. Is that how you say it, I believe? Not aluminum. Algamum. I believe that's how you say it. Almug. My bad. Algma trees. Look. This algma trees, right? a type of precious exotic wood brought to Solomon from the land of O.F.I. Look, they say likely ancient India. But peep this though, y'all. It's known that red sandalwood, but what do you call in the what do they call it? The not Appalachian, y'all. What is it called? The redwood trees. Where's that at in let me see, what is it called? Redwood trees. It is sequoias and giant redwoods, right? So these are kind of similar to the same type of wood, which we know even them almond trees also are prevalent in America, right? Now, the reason why I'm going to this is that, look, every 3 years, once came the ships of Tarshish. So that 3 years will be a round trip. A year and a half there and a year and a half back. Good game, y'all. It didn't take a year and a half to get from Africa. When you go into to Tarshish, look at this, y'all. Look at this. It's gonna prove it. Look at this, y'all. Ancient Tarshish. Bam. Keep this. Images. Look at this. Bam. I'm gonna get this map right here. Share this tab instead. Ancient Tarshish. This is ancient map right here. You got Joppa. You got Nineveh, where we saw Assyrians. This is the Horn of Africa right here. This is the Levant, or everything we'll be calling the so-called Middle East now, right? Tarshish right here. It didn't take a year and a half to get from Tarshish to India. All right, let's be real here, y'all. Look, Tarshish to India. Look at this. Prove all things. So bam. If you go into Tarshish and you look on the ancient maps, you got Anatolia, right, which is now like modern day Turkey and things of that nature, if I'm not mistaken. But look, Israel right here, Joppa, Tyre, and Zidon, which we saw back to the heathens that surrounded us. O.F.I, going to the south, the gold of O.F.I and things of that nature, right? But look, Tarshish, right? That's the ancient spelling. You got Sardinia, you got Gaul, you got Germania, Black Sea. You got this region over here going into India, right? So when you, that's like Asia, I believe they call that Asia Minor, if I'm not mistaken, at that point in time. But the point is, it didn't take you a year and a half to get to Tarshish. It didn't take you a year and a half, right? Let me reshare my screen. Salakia, bear with me, family. It didn't take you a year and a half to get there. So from that perspective, this is how we know that when it's going into this second Chronicles 9 and 21 of Tarshish, it wasn't talking about India. It had to be talking about a place that took a year and a half to get there and a year and a half to get back if it's a 3-year trip. So when we connect this back to that second Esdras, right? The second Esdras, the 13th chapter, verse 45, bam. Or through that country was a great way to go. It's a great way to go from the Habor River up to the narrow passages of the Euphrates, across from the Most High, allowing us to navigate through the wisdom of the moon and the stars and to hold back the flood because we went in a certain season to get over there. So we didn't die or drown in canoes because we didn't have big ships, right? And we were a great multitude, the Northern Kingdom, the 10 tribes, right? Which included the so-called Native Americans, the Aztecs, the Incans, the Mayans, so forth and so on. Pete, namely a year and a half. That means 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3 years. That's why in Second Chronicles, we see that it took 3 years. So we see that this is the same place that they went when Solomon was sending the ships of Tarshish. Archaeology, which is known as the Americas, all right? Known, even your top so-called Amalekite scholars, right, will tell you that Archaeology, even Columbus, with his old dirty, dusty, you know what I'm saying? His old dirty, dusty, crusty, dog-head Columbus, right? Which, by the way, y'all, rebuke this coming up so-called Monday. It's supposed to be Columbus Day, I believe. Now, I had a little situation I had to go through today, And they told me I had a certain appointment that was supposed to be on Monday. And they're like, well, lucky for you, it's Columbus Day. We're off. That I don't believe in luck. You feel me? And the hell with Columbus, right? Death to Columbus and all of his forefathers, foremothers, and ancestors, right? And his offspring. But back to the point. Archaeology is the name of the, look, hypothetical. These people, they'll piss you off, though. Salaki, they'll piss you off with all this hypothetical. Man, ain't nothing hypothetical, right? Hypothetical land mentioned in Second Esdras. A non-canonical Jewish text. And they always talk about some damn Jewish text, but as a far-off region beyond the Euphrates River. And you see how they try to do this? They try to say a non-canonical. Side note, y'all. Look up what's canon and what's not, and how did they determine what's canon. We're going to get into a lesson on that. Not today, but we definitely, through the Spirit, Lord willing, Abaratazai, we're going to get into a lesson on that, because the Apocrypha is canon. You damn losers. It is canon, right? Why you think it was in the 1611, right? When you go back to the ancient manuscripts and so forth and so on, but nevertheless. But these fake Jewish scholars will tell you, look, the Jewish Encyclopedia will tell you. Christopher Columbus, look, the name of the land beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses. And look, we're in this land, and we're getting back to our heritage. This is prophecy. Until the time of the restoration. Right? That's until the time of Hamashiach Malak, Yahweh. Columbus identified America with this land. And even he had Israelites on his voyage who maneuvered based on the Apocrypha to get his dusty, crusty, rusty over here. Right? So Archaeology is emphatically identified in modern day times as America. So when we go back to let me get here. When we go back to tying it to the Ohio Mound Builders to get to this, hey, we probably only gonna get one. We're probably gonna only get one. What do you call it? Artifact out tonight, y'all. One artifact. We ain't even mentioned what the artifact really is going into, because I wanted to really, Lord willing, start spending more time on explaining how we get to these understandings that we have. Yo, we not crazy. I mean, we fools for Christ. Ain't that what the precepts say? Right? But we're not out of our minds, y'all. These things through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai is starting to unlock. Didn't in the book of Daniel say, in latter days knowledge will increase? And this light is hot, y'all. It's hot. But latter days knowledge will increase. Well, this is how we gotta study to show ourselves approved. Rightly dividing the word of truth don't just mean know every precept. It also means be able to connect it in a practical standpoint to the truth of the Bible is not just only limited to being in the confines of the pages. The truth of the Bible is universal throughout the world. Now, the understanding of the Bible, of the truth of the Bible, is not universal, right? So, from that perspective, bam. The Ohio Mound Builders. Now we went through that to show you how did the so-called Native Americans, who are part of the 10 tribes, even get to this part of the world to have these commandments, to be found in a mound in Ohio, right? So peep game. The Ohio Mound Builders were ancient Native American cultures, Israelites, Gadites, right? Primarily of the Adena and Hopewell. Now peep this. We got to go into this, y'all. When you go into, I'm going to go to this real quick. No, not Adena Healthcare. 1 second. Let me show y'all this real quick. Because they call the 5 major Native American tribes, right? So bam. Normally, when you hear about the so-called Native Americans, right, the Israelites, the Gadites, the Reubenites, they normally talk about the 5 major tribes. You got the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, or the Muskogee, and the Seminoles, which we know the Seminoles go into the Reubenites, right, from the tribe of Reuben. You see a lot of them primarily now, like Oklahoma, also a lot down in Florida as well, for sure. But these are the so-called major five that you hear about, right? But all of these tribes are just the Northern Kingdom at the end of the day, right? So from that forth and so on, when you hear, and it goes into the Adena and Hopewell, these tribes actually are part of like offshoots of the five major tribes, right? Adena and Hopewell. I'm going to show this really quick, just to bring some historical context, y'all. So when you look at different parts of, especially like Ohio, to be quite frank, right? Ohio archaeological cultures. So you have four ancients, you have the Hopewell and the Adena. These are different mounds that were built all over, right? And the mounds, they still to these days, they think that they were, some of them were burial sites, ancient meeting sites. Some people say temples. There's a lot of different hypotheses on what these mounds were actually utilized for, right? And so the point of it, when you go into these Adena and these Hopewell, these were mostly around like the Ohio River Valley, Kentucky. Look, the Adena culture was centered on the location of modern state of Ohio, but also extended in contiguous areas of Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and parts of extreme western Pennsylvania. So they were known for mound builders, to be mound builders, right? Which mound is really like an earthen mound. Some of them consider it of a type of a pyramid, right? And so when we go back into the study of these, right, this is how you have these Israelites who've come to this part of the world who have the knowledge, who've held on to the culture, because remember, they came over here, although a lot of the Northern Kingdom went into idolatry. That's why they went into captivity. But the Most High stored up that remnant. Remember, he said, I have reserved unto me was 7,000 prophets who haven't bowed to the knee of Baal, right? We get that in 1 Kings 19 and 18. It says, yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him. Now this is going into the Most High has always left a remnant of his people who have he put in their spirit, right, to be set apart and to be predestinated according to the grace, right? Then Yahweh shall say, before the world was in the book of Jeremiah, that was Yahweh saying that before I formed thee, I knew thee. Before I put thee in my mother's womb, right, I knew thee. Before I formed thee in the belly, right, and I ordained thee to be a prophet unto the nations. And we know that these spirits were created, right? We see that in the book of 1 Corinthians as well. When we go into, 2 Corinthians, I believe the 15th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. When we go into even the Most High commissioning and ordaining and commanding Yahweh Shai to create these spirits before the world began, that have been predestinated and set apart to be called and to follow the Most High all the way into the kingdom, right? Ancient spirits, right? Could be you, could be me. You know what I'm saying? And so from that perspective, though, these brothers and sisters, there's certain of them that took from that time of going from captivity with Shalmaneser the fifth all the way till they got over here. They kept the knowledge. The Most High kept the zeal on them to preserve, because they came over here in hopes to keep the commandments, being far away from the heathen. Like, look, we're going to get far away from the heathen. We're not going to be influenced by their idolatry, so forth and so on. It didn't work as they thought. but you had certain men and women that the Most High stored that up in the spirit. So by the time they got over here, right, it was a situation where they had the 10 Commandments, y'all. You gotta really, really lock into that. In Hebrew. Hi, ya, 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 ya. Hi, ya, 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 ya. You think they were saying Yahweh? Yahweh, wow, 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 wow. Yahweh, wow, wow, wow. Now they fell into further idolatry, right? But not everybody. Just like it reminds me in the book of Tobit, where Tobit said often, now Tobit was a northern kingdom from the tribe of Naphtali. He said, my whole tribe, my fathers had fell into idolatry, and often I went alone to Jerusalem to the feast. That's in Tobit, the first chapter, I believe around verse 4, right? So the Most High is always poured up in the spirit, and we pray that we have that spirit of endurance, that the Most High, that we're those spirits that have been sealed from before time began, right? To carry on the heritage, just like our mighty forefathers. And so back to the mound building, right? You have something called the Newark stone, right? So if we go into Newark, Ohio, there's a lot of mounds there. And these are, they call them UNESCO. UNESCO, I believe, is like United Nations. I don't know what it stands for. One second. UNESCO Heritage Sites. What does UNESCO stand for? UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Esau always got to make some damn type of organization, hedge fund, trust fund, foundation, institute, where they trying to classify and reclassify, declassify, and all of that type of stuff. But the point of the matter is, UNESCO is an organization that puts a stamp on certain archaeological sites, and they call them World Heritage Sites, right? Now, one of those sites is these Newark earthworks, which are mounds here in Ohio, where I am, right? I'm not in Newark, I'm in Toledo, but these are mounds. And as you can see here, I'm going to try to zoom in. Look how perfect these mounds are built. Esau tried to get landscape. Now, there's different hypotheses and theories. Some of these were mounds for burials, they say. Some of them were worship. Some of the mounds, they say, were to track, different, like almost like a calendar, right? Some of them, they say, were utilized for irrigation. So many different utilizations of them. And honestly, me personally, I think they were used for all of those above. I don't think that they were just one thing, that because Most High gave us certain knowledges. Even it's a precept that comes to my husbandry, right? When you go into the process of husbandry and caring for the land, Most High begins to give you knowledge of how to cultivate the land, right? Because you got to think, that was one of the curses that got put on ever since Adam, that we would have to till the ground. So the Most High is so gracious, even in cursing us and even in our punishment, that he still allows the spirit of wisdom to sup with us, right? And so from that perspective, in these mounds, when they go into excavating certain mounds, earthworks, and digging them up and discovering certain things, they found something that is called, right? I'm going to show you this right quick. And you see right now, these are places that, like the Circle Mound, and they built museums on our heritage. And they don't want to try it and say that these so-called Native Americans are really the Israelites. Well, how else did they get Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, and the so-called 10 Commandments? Like, where would a Native American learn that from. And that's why when you go into these artifacts, they try to say allegedly or potentially or all of these misleading words, and their broken heathen culture of English misdirect you to make you think that a hoax. That's the word they like to use. They love to say things are a hoax. Oh, it's a hoax and all. It's not a damn hoax, y'all. Real history. So let me get to it, right? Let me get to it, y'all. Salakia, I've been a little long-winded. I'm gonna wrap up. Like I said, we only got through one tonight, but bam, the octagon earthworks. This is once again the Hopewell people. Look, these are mounds, and when you notice, if you look at the coordinates on them, and if you look at them from an aerial view, they are in perfect geometrical alignment with certain star systems. Now everything ain't about worship. Now, yeah, we have people going off. You know, I'm not saying that, okay, Brother Nehemiah is not saying that they weren't going off, probably doing some damn worshiping of the sun, and that's not the point. The point here is that the Most High still gave them the knowledge of exactness. Think about that. They didn't have excavators, no diggers, no backhoes, no John Deeres, no none of that stuff, none of those tools. They didn't have a surveyor's map to perfectly build these structures. So even there's theories, which I believe this is in application as well, of them being able to chart the month and the times and the seasons based on the moon and the stars, and align it as a calendar based on these mountains, right? Which would even go into, if you think about it through the spirit of them, even the Most High being gracious and giving them the knowledge so that they can even try to keep the feast days by knowing the calendar, by tracking the months and things of that nature. Y'all feel what I'm saying, right? And so, bam. So when you go into this, look at this. These are actual, right here, look. You see how it's perfectly aligned? And that's a beautiful picture. You see how they perfectly aligned? Look, boom, boom, boom in between. Boom right here with the moon when it's in its full. So it's like, look, by the time the moon, so think of this. Well, you know when the new moon is, you know what the cycle is based on the moon, based on the orientation to the calendar. Man, it's deep, right? But in the midst of them excavating, and I forget the term. I don't think they call it excavation, unearthing, whatever the term is. Salakia, family. Water gone. My daughter smashed the water, y'all. But whatever the term is, in terms of archaeological digs, I think is what they technically call it. They unearthed this Newark Decalogue. Look at this. I'm gonna get a picture of it. Bam. Look at this, y'all. Bam. Bam. Look at that, y'all. Now, how would some mound building savages, some heathen, dumb, what do they call us? Savages. That's what they call us. Meaning uncivilized. But they build in mounds to track the lunar cycle. But they're savages. Hold up. That's a whole another thing. But nevertheless, bam. Decalogue. Deca, right? Deca goes into 10. Look up Deca. Deca. Before a vowel used, look, from Greek Deca, 10, right? 10, having 10. Decahedron, decane. So Deca means 10. So this Decalogue, Newark Decalogue stones, this contained tablets of the 10 Commandments. This is a stone outside box. I'm going to read a little bit of this, y'all. In November of 1860, David Wyrick of Newark, Ohio, found an inscribed stone in a burial mound about 10 miles south of Newark. The stone is inscribed on all sides with a condensed version of the Ten Commandments or Decalogue in a peculiar form of post-exilic square Hebrew letters. Now look, y'all, this is just wild because post-exilic, that means after the exile. Okay, why is this important? Because after the exile, we wouldn't have been writing in Paleo Hebrew script. We would have been writing in the more Assyric script, right? Now peep this, y'all. Peep this, y'all. Look, Assyric Hebrew script verse Paleo post-exile. Let me show y'all something real quick. And brothers in the camp at O.F.I, we actually have this on. We have this exact flyer that we hand out sometimes at camp, right? So look at this. You got the mosaic or hieroglyphic Hebrew, right? Which looks like this. They call it the Sinai script. Now you look, you see right here, Sinai inscriptions or the Sinai script. This is kind of like what people more relate to, like Egyptian hieroglyphics, right? I'm not saying these are Egyptian hieroglyphs, but hieroglyphics goes into pictures that represent words and phonetics. All right. So, this is like this Sinai inscription or Sinai Hebrew script is what is led to believe that Moses originally where the Ten Commandments were given in this type of script. Then you have the Gezer calendar, which is a calendar that was discovered, right? I want to say, here it says right here, 925 BC, but I want to say Josiah, but I'm not sure if that's correct. But I think it was Josiah, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'll drop it in the comments of the video once I post it on this live. That was Josiah. Now, this long tunnel might have been Josiah, but nevertheless, this is the Paleo Hebrew script that we know, right? Like you see Yahweh in the Paleo Hebrew script. My reading of Paleo Hebrew isn't on point like it should be. Definitely. Matter of fact, shout out to the brother Captain Emmanuel. He did send a whole workbook today to our group chat, so definitely want to check that out. But the Paleo Hebrew script about 1050 to 458 BC. Look right here. So post-exilic, like you see this Aramaic Hebrew looks more on this script, and then you see the Masoretic Hebrew with the diacritical marks and things of that nature. So when you look at right here, this type of Hebrew post-exilic really goes into like after the exile of Babylon, more directly, right? So when you go back to I want to show y'all something real quick. When you go back, let me shut a couple of these tabs, y'all. So when you go back, bam, here, and it says containing the post-exilic script, that's really going into after the exile. So you see, bam, right here, you see the Ten Commandments, right? And look, right here, the keystone. Several months earlier, June 1860, Wyrick had found an additional stone, also inscribed in Hebrew letters. This stone shown above is popularly known as the keystone because of its general shape. However, it is too rounded to have actually served as a keystone. It was apparently intended to be held with the knob in the right hand and turned to read the four sides in succession, perhaps repetitively. It might have also been suspended by the knob for some purpose. Although it is not pointed enough to have been a plumb bob, I don't know what a plumb bob is, right? I gotta research that. It could have served as a pendulum, okay. The material of the keystone has been identified probably by geologist Charles Whitsley immediately after its discovery as noble light. a very hard, fine-grained siliceous rock used for whetstones. The photograph here shows its natural color. Look at that, man. Beautiful brownish golden. Man, the Most High is so amazing. Look at that glare and those natural colors. Hey, I know some brothers who got a dunk who will definitely want that paint job though. Sitting on some 4Gs with, no, I'm just playing. But I'm serious though. But look, the inscriptions on the four sides says Dash Quadashim, Holy of Holies, Melech Eretz, King of the Earth, Torath Yahweh, the law of God, Devor Yahweh, the word of God. Now, peep this, y'all. How do some Indians in the other part of the world, far time period in between, the exile from Babylon, the Syrian captivity, so forth and so on, end up with Hebrew inscriptions for the Ten Commandments calling Yahweh in Ohio? I'll leave that up for you to do your own due diligence and put the answers together, but I'm gonna give you my answer because we're the biblical Israelites, bro. Our people have been in America. And you know, a lot of Moorish brothers and sisters, would you brothers and sisters is all cool. Calling yourself ancient Moabite. Calling yourself a damn incest baby, y'all. Come on now. What's going on, y'all? I want to be everything but God's chosen people. But that's a whole nother situation. Because I used to be one of them hard-headed, ignorant Moorish brothers. Call myself a Moor. So, you know, all praise to the Most High for his grace and mercy and bringing me out of that. I used to think I was Egyptian. Pharaoh, medic. You know, I got these on my arm. Look at that, y'all. Folly madness. I want to take them off, but can't cut myself. You know, can't make cuts in the flesh, right? Not doing it for the dead, but you know, just a reminder of the Most High God's mercy. But back to the point, how did they get over here, y'all? Because we are the Israelites. The Hopewell, those are Israelites, y'all, from the Northern Kingdom that came over here. The Bible is real. Archaeology is real. And we just spent maybe an hour on one artifact. A little hour and some change, bro. And there's way more to go in. This even gets more deep. So I'm actually gonna drop these links as well in the chat too. I'll go ahead and drop these links, Lord willing, so brothers and sisters can look at the videos and can see what's going down. But with that, we want to give all glory, praises, and honor to the Most High God, Yahweh, Hashem Mashiach, Wamalak Yahushua, Lord willing. This has been edifying, educational, and helping us contend for the faith and for the gospel, right? Man, all praise to the Most High, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. And I'm just seeing these comments too. Salakia, yo, I gotta do better in looking at the comments. Shalom, brother. Man, loves the instrumental, soothes my soul. All praise Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Shalom to the mighty soldier, Nathan Yalla. Factual. Hey, a brother kept at camp the other day saying factual. A little inside joke. Gangster Dave 2000. Hey man, you're quoting from a book that is not accepted as canon. It's not accepted as canon by who, y'all? By the so-called white man in a Protestant church? I don't give a damn what they accept as canon. Look, the same book that was in the original Bible for 200 plus years. Get them, soldier. Right. Hey, the book the white man took out to make printing out Bibles cheaper? Yes, that book, man. Same book. Hey, same book Yahweh Shai quoted from? Yeah, that book. Matthew 22 and 37? Yeah, 23 and 30? Yeah, that book. That book. You know, the hen, right? Matter of fact, let's get that mighty precept real quick. Matthew 23, 37, right? The hens. Look. O Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chicks under her wings, and ye would not. Now, peep this, y'all. Notice it says, even as a hen gathers her chicks. Look at 2nd Esdras 1 and 30. 2nd Esdras 1 and 30. This is what you precept with that Matthew that we just went through. I gather you together as a hen gathereth her chicks under her wing. But now, what shall I say unto you? I will cast ye out from my face. Yahushua, Hamashiach, Malak Yahushua, right? Our King and Messiah, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, directly quoting the Apocrypha. The same Apocrypha that you learn about the Feast of Dedication, that Yahushua kept, John 10 and 22, and it was, let me get this real quick, right? And it was the Feast of the Dedication, and it was winter. And Yahushua, look, what did he do? And Yahushua, or Jesus, as you say, walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. So the same Apocrypha that they claim is not canon, Yahushua didn't think that. He didn't think that at all. Because he was keeping the feast day. Hanukkah, right? The dedication. All right? So we reject all false doctrine, especially that one. Mighty precepts, soldier. But with that, we want to give all glory, praise, and honor Shah's cut or happy Feast of Tabernacles, y'all. We love y'all. You know, may the Most High bless y'all. Our heart desires for all Israel to be saved. For the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, greetings. Kwam Yasha.